Last up, and on the unenviable position of being between you guys and lunch, is Claudine Bradley, who we're happy this year for the first time to have the National Energy Board of Canada represented. It's a little different regulatory approach up there, so it'll be interesting to hear what she has to say. You know, the National Energy Board is kind of like if you combine PHMSA and FERC to some degree. But she can describe it way better than I can. So this is Claudine Bradley. She's the technical lead for the National Energy Board of Canada. And I've got the right show up there. It's just the up and down buttons.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to share perhaps a different perspective, although I think you'll hear that there are some common themes in terms of our ongoing regulatory efforts in Canada. I thought it might be helpful to begin just very briefly speaking about our organization. So the National Energy Board is a federal independent agency that was established by the Parliament of Canada, essentially to regulate interprovincial and international oil, gas, and electric utility industries. So with regards to pipelines, we currently regulate approximately 70,000 kilometers of pipelines across Canada. And again, those are interprovincial and international pipelines. And we take a life cycle approach, so through the application process to abandonment of the pipelines. So the operating environment of the North American oil and gas industry experienced a monumental shift on April 20th, 2010, with the BP Macondo well blowout. And that was unfortunately followed by a number of significant pipeline incidents, some of which we've already spoken about here today, notably the Enbridge Line 6B break in Marshall and the San Bruno incident. As a result of those events and others, the public has started to question, obviously, the inherent risks as well as the benefits to oil and gas production and transportation. So now more than any other time in our history, there's a growing interest in what regulators are doing and how we are holding companies accountable. The National Energy Board puts safety and environmental protection at the forefront of our mandate. And we don't just encourage, but we require that oil and gas companies continually improve their safety performance. And we achieve that through compliance activities as well as enforcement. The Government of Canada has also recognized a need for strengthened oversight in our industry. And with the passing of the Jobs, Growth and Long-Term Prosperity Act, the government recently provided the National Energy Board with some additional tools, including the ability to issue monetary penalties and to seek criminal prosecution for non-compliance with legislation associated with safety and environmental protection. Further, the government is providing the NEB with an additional $13.5 million to hire additional staff. So we have heard the common theme of dealing with greater expectations and with limited resources. And so we have seen some response by the government in that regard. Among other things, this will allow us to increase the number of annual inspections that we conduct from 100 to 150, and to increase the number of comprehensive audits that we conduct each year from 3 to 6. These activities are in addition to other compliance verification activities that we perform in an effort to ensure that companies' management systems, their entire management systems, are continually reviewed. In order for us to be most effective as a regulator, we feel that the companies we regulate must perceive compliance monitoring and enforcement to be unrelenting and ever-present. So we actively monitor compliance, and we will take all available actions to protect both the public and the environment. When a violation is detected by the NEB, we expect immediate corrective actions to be taken and an assessment of both the root causes as well as the contributing factors. Continual improvement is essential, and it not only applies to our companies, but it applies to us as the regulator. So a regulator must never be satisfied that it's done all it can. We must be constantly seeking new tools, new frameworks, new regulations, and new technologies to improve the existing protections. By July of 2013, one of these new tools will be implemented at the National Energy Board. It's known as administrative monetary penalties, and as I mentioned until very recently with a new act being enacted by government, we didn't have this ability. So this will allow us to issue financial penalties to both companies as well as to individuals. The penalties are both a powerful deterrent as well as an effective method of enforcement. And the maximum penalties have been set at $25,000 for an individual and $100,000 for a company. But it's important to note that separate penalties can be issued per infraction and per day, and there is no maximum amount. The NEB has been entrusted with the authority to use our judgment when deciding whether or not a company is operating safely. If we believe that a company we regulate is not doing so, we are obligated to take action to bring them into compliance, and we will err on the side of caution. We will revoke authorizations, impose safety orders, issue stop work orders or monetary penalties, as well as pursue criminal prosecutions. Since October of 2011, the board has issued 5 orders that restrict the operations of companies in order to reduce risk. We are doing and will continue to do what's required in order to protect both the public and the environment. The NEB believes that carefully designed and well-implemented management systems are the key to ensuring that people are kept safe and that the environment is protected. We've seen in recent reports on the causes of major incidents, including the Marshall event and the San Bruno incident, that there have been deficiencies in management systems. And in many instances, those deficiencies have actually led to greater effects following the event. Another key finding of the reports, reiterated by our own Arctic offshore drilling review, which we conducted last year, was the disturbing pattern of organizational cultures that lack the commitment and necessary resources to assure that each employee and contractor puts safety ahead of production pressures. We've been clear with our companies. We expect them to develop a culture in which both personal and process safety are always top of mind. The NEB believes that the adoption of robust management systems is the means by which this outcome is achieved. The NEB must be satisfied that a company's management system provides a strong foundation for a pervasive culture of safety that's forcefully affirmed by leadership, rigorously documented, known to all personnel, whether they be employees or contractors, and consistently implemented from the corporate office to the right-of-way. A strong safety culture is one in which everyone is aware of the known hazards while remaining vigilant to new threats, one in which every employee feels empowered and rewarded for making safe decisions, a culture where employees feel encouraged to report safety hazards, even in instances where they have committed an error and introduced the threat themselves. It's also one in which the most junior operator would shut down the pipeline without fear of any disciplinary action, and one where the boss doesn't have to be present for someone to do the right thing. Finally, it's an organization that's based on continual learning from its own and others' experiences with the goal of advancing safety and environmental protection. That's what a culture of safety looks like for us at the board, and that's what we expect of our regulated companies. Our current pipeline regulations were brought into force in 1999, and they've been updated over the years with Canadian Standards Association revisions. While they're effective at defining a baseline management system, we felt there was more we could do. In 2011, we released a proposed regulatory change, which was put out for public comment, where we provided clear and detailed expectations for how regulated companies must implement their management systems. And it was just last week that this proposed regulatory change moved through the process. It's now open for a second public comment. It was just published in our Gazette 1, which is the next step in the process. And for the next 30 days, the public will have the ability to review the language and then provide comment. And similar to the process here, it will then go back out again as a final draft. This amendment included several elements that were focused on advancing safety culture. It included a requirement for the designation of a company officer who is accountable for the management system as well as achieving the outcomes related to safety and environmental protection. And it was designed in such a way that it would be the CEO or the president of the company that would hold that position. The amendment also included the requirement to have a non-punitive reporting policy, something that was mentioned earlier today. We believe compliance with these regulations will provide the foundation for what will become a rigorous, industry-wide culture of safety. Unfortunately, even under the most tightly regulated systems, incidents can still happen. We'll continue to take a proactive approach to preventing spills and releases with the ultimate goal of seeing none at all. Something, again, that we learned from our Arctic offshore drilling review is the importance of well-defined and readily implemented emergency response plans. We've been clear with the companies we regulate that they must anticipate, prevent, mitigate, and manage incidents and oil spills of any size or any duration. And our regulations reflect that requirement. Finally, we recognize that we have an obligation to the public to provide them with information and respond quickly to their concerns. That's why we began posting all documents relating to board-initiated safety and environmental compliance actions to our website in the fall of 2011. This includes all of our board orders and letters, filings and correspondence regarding compliance and conditions of approvals, filings and correspondence from companies to the board related to safety and environmental compliance actions, including their corrective action plans, as well as all of our final operational audits. So we were asked what more would we like to do, because again, continual improvement is critical. The NEB continues to strive to improve our existing regulatory framework and the safety and environmental performance of our regulated companies. With that in mind, we are considering enhancing our current regulatory framework with the possible introduction of safety culture assessments. This is a relatively new area of study, and we are pursuing it as a means of closing the cultural gaps that may contribute to accidents. We would also like to see innovative ways of encouraging greater sharing of lessons across industry to improve the transparency between companies, so that there's a forum to openly share the proactive identification of new hazards, lessons learned through incidents and investigations, and the successful use of specific controls, best practices, and programs that are successfully working to manage threats. Finally, we'd like to pursue similar collaboration with other regulators, including PHMSA. We'd like to create a partnership where, as agencies, we can come together and leverage the experience across all of our jurisdictions. Societal expectations of industry and its leaders have evolved, and high-hazard industries are subject to intense scrutiny, as they should be, by affected communities, non-governmental agencies, and the public at large. The NEB recognizes that a reduction in the number and severity of pipeline incidents depends on the actions taken both by industry but also by the regulators. We believe effective safety cultures and strong management systems are the key. And they're of such a high importance that we're hosting a safety forum this coming June 5th and 6th in Calgary, Alberta, to provide another forum for additional discussion and information sharing, and to actively identify opportunities for both industry and regulators to improve. The safety of the public and the protection of the environment are our #1 priority, and we'll take all available actions to protect these precious resources. So I thank you again for giving us the opportunity to share some of our thinking, some of the high-level directions that we're moving. And again, I invite you to join us at our safety forum next June in Calgary so we can continue the conversation. Thank you.